What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my full card breakdown and predictions for UFC London. We got Tom Aspinall going against Marcin Tybura.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back for another full card breakdown and prediction video. This week, breaking down a stacked card in UFC London. We have 15 fights on this card. A card where I think there is numerous betting opportunities. I think I have like 6 or 7 bets thus far. From a picks perspective, kind of a challenging card. I think we have a lot of very, very closely lined fights. I think there's like 3 or 4 just like straight pick'em fights. Not a ton of big favorites, so a lot of very competitive matchups here. But yeah, really looking forward to this card. Before we get into it and break it all down, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that a ton. I'm going to be putting out some content throughout the week. Got the DraftKings video, the Prize Picks video, got the betting breakdown, the Final Thoughts live stream, Best Bet live stream. Just a ton of content coming throughout the week. And then also be sure to check out dfsbythenumbers.com. Like I said, I think I have like 6 or 7 bets thus far, looking to add plenty more once these props start dropping. But yeah, should be a pretty good card from a betting perspective, in my opinion. So looking forward to that. I'm almost finished with my full card best bet article where I break down all the fights, all 15 fights this week. I give my prediction, the round, the method, and then also the best bet, of course, and then the confidence rating for each and every pick on the card. So that is on dfsbythenumbers.com, and also just a ton more content that you do not see on YouTube. So be sure to check that out. Lastly, be sure to check out Prize Picks. Use that promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. And I gave out 9 Prize Picks plays on my Prize Picks video that drops on Thursdays last week, and I hit 8 out of 9. So that was pretty good there. Hopefully we can keep it up this week, so be sure to check that out. That should be dropping on Thursday. But yeah, guys, we have a ton to talk about. 15 fights. I say we stop wasting time and get right into it. We're going to kick it off with the first fight of the night, and we're going to kick it off with a very, very fun fight, a flyweight fight, and Jafel Filho going against Daniel Barez. We got Filho, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 68.5-inch reach, 14-3, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Daniel Barez, 34 years old, 5'6", with a 66-inch reach, 16-5. And he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Filho opened up minus 245, currently minus 130. And then Barez opened up plus 210. He is currently plus 110. So, yeah, I was actually very impressed with Barez. This is a guy that did fight on the Contender Series a couple of years ago, back in 2021, against Carlos Hernandez. He did lose a very close decision there, which was a split decision even. And then after that, I think he went outside of the Contender Series and all that, and he was able to get 4 wins in a row. And I think all 4 of those wins came, obviously, by finish, but I think in the first round. Like, this guy is very, very dangerous. I like his striking. He puts everything into his shots. And what I like about Barez the most, I think, is the way he mixes it up to the body. Like I've seen on multiple occasions, this guy is hurting guys bad to the body. He's finishing guys to the body. Just a very, very dangerous striker at flyweight. For a flyweight, this guy hits like an absolute truck. The thing I don't like about Barez, though, I mean, look, he's 34 years old. Which making your debut at 34 years old is kind of a red flag. And then on top of that, he's a flyweight. So we got a flyweight guy making his debut at 34 years old. I don't like to see that, but from what I see with the guy, he looks pretty dang good. Jafel Filho is a guy that did lose his UFC debut, but his stock just completely rose in that UFC debut against Muhammad Mokaev in a fight where he was, very close to submitting Muhammad Mokaev on multiple different occasions. So Filho, this guy is a very dangerous grappler. This guy has power in his hands even. I remember on the Contender Series, he went out there and got a 3rd round knockout, just out of nowhere, knocking this guy out late 3rd round. So that was good. I like both these guys a lot. I'm very high on both these guys. Filho is the younger guy, the guy that is more likely to make improvements, but I think we got a close fight on our hands. I think Barez is going to try to keep this standing, keep it on the feet, because he's not going to want to go to the ground with Filho. Absolutely not. In terms of making a pick, I'm going to pick Barez to win this fight. I'm going to take him to win this fight by knockout as well. But if this fight does hit the mat, Filho is absolutely going to have his opportunities. Barez has been subbed twice in his career, but those sub losses were back in like 2015, 2014. So it was a while ago. So I think Barez has patched up that hole in his game. Hopefully, he's going to need to. But I'll say Barez keeps it standing, mixes it up to the body, and gets Filho out there. 2nd round knockout for Daniel Barez to kick off the card. Next, we got Bruna Brazil going against Shauna Bannon. We got Bruna Brazil, 29 years old, 5'6" with a 65.5-inch reach, 8-3, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Shauna Bannon, 29 years old, 5'5" with a 69-inch reach, 5-0, and 5-0, obviously, in her last 5 fights. So we'll take a look at the odds here. We have Bruna Brazil actually opening up as the dog, plus 135. She's currently the favorite, minus 150. Bannon opened up minus 155, and she is currently a plus 130 dog. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too excited about this fight whatsoever. Bruna Brazil, I had, I guess, some high-ish hopes for her coming into, the UFC off the Contender Series. She had that nice head kick knockout, but I don't know. I just did not like how she looked in her debut against Denise Gomes. I know it was Denise Gomes, who we now know is pretty dang good, but it looked like that was the first time that Brazil ever battled any adversity whatsoever. She was getting pressured, and she just looked like she had no answer for it whatsoever. Like, she looked lost in that fight. It looked like the first time she was ever in a fight. I don't know what was up with Brazil that night. Maybe Denise Gomes is just that good, or maybe it was because it was Brazil's debut, but Brazil just looked off. I mean, she landed, I think, only 15 strikes against Denise Gomes, who has, she lets you hit her in the face. So, great performance by Denise Gomes, but just Brazil looked awful in that fight. She's taken on Shauna Bannon, who just does not look that great to me. She's not fought really anybody. But what she does do, apparently she has a striking background, but you watch all her fights, she's looking to get the fight down to the mat, and I feel like that could very well be a path to victory for Bannon here. Brazil, she has a 45% takedown defense on paper, something she kind of has struggled with throughout her career. We saw Marc take her down on the Contender Series 3 times. She was able to pop back up, but taken down 3 times nonetheless. And then we saw Denise Gomes take her down 3 times as well. So it's safe to say I think Bannon's going to come in here and try to get this fight down to the mat, and she probably has success. I think Brazil's the more skilled fighter in this fight, but I feel like it's a close fight where we have Brazil, who is going to be the better striker, but Bannon does have a path to victory here, and that path to victory is getting the fight down to the mat. I hate this pick. I hate this fight, but I'm going to take another dog here and Shauna Bannon to get it done, but you will not see me touching this fight from a betting perspective. I'm not high on either fighter here. Although Bannon is undefeated, I don't think she's amazing. So looking to probably fade both fighters in the future, but as far as a pick, give me the dog on a fight that I think she does have a path here with the wrestling. Moving on, we got Chris Duncan going against Yanal Ashmuz. We got Chris Duncan, 30 years old, 5'10", with a 71.5-inch reach, 10-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Yanal Ashmuz, 28 years old, 5'9", with a 68-inch reach, 7-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Chris Duncan opened up minus 170. He is currently sitting at minus 145. Yanal Ashmuz opened up plus 145, currently sitting at plus 125. I think Ashmuz is probably going to be the most popular underdog of this card, and that's because he went out there and just brutal knockout win in his last fight against Sam Patterson as a pretty big dog as well. So he cashed as a big dog last time. I think a lot of people are going to expect him to cash as a dog this time, and I think he's super live. This is a fight where I've been kind of going back and forth, in terms of who to pick. I am going to slightly lean on the Chris Duncan side, and here's why. Chris Duncan is a guy that I think he's making some serious improvements. He's training now at American Top Team, training with some really good guys. And what really impressed me in his last fight, and people are crapping on him for his win against Omar Morales in his last fight. But what impressed me with Chris Duncan is this is a guy in Chris Duncan who has no regards for any striking defense, no regards for his own health in there when it comes to the striking defense. I mean, his hands are super low, and he blocks punches with his face, right? And we've seen, in the past, he has been hurt. We saw Charlie Campbell hurt him on the Contender Series. We saw Borshev knock him out on the Contender Series as well, right? So he's getting hurt. He's getting to these wars, these brawls, and it's clearly, it could work against these lower-level guys potentially, outside the UFC, but inside the UFC against higher-level competition, it's probably not going to work out more often than not, and it's definitely not working out here. But what Chris Duncan did in that Morales fight was wrestling. I mean, he went out there and wrestled Omar Morales across 15 minutes. He didn't get into a war. He didn't get into a brawl like we typically see Chris Duncan do. And if he does that in this matchup, which I think he will, he's training at ATT, great training partners, great coaches, Great game planning. I think if he comes in here and wrestles Ashmuz, keeps this against the cage, consistently takes him down across 15, he's going to be the bigger guy as well. I think Chris Duncan can kind of grind out a decision here, but, man, if Chris Duncan wants to stand and bang with this guy, he's probably getting knocked out. Ashmuz has some serious power. We saw that in the Patterson fight. But I just think Duncan has a path to victory here, which is going to be getting the fight down to the mat. So I don't hate the Yanal Ashmuz dog picks whatsoever. I just feel like Duncan, if he comes in here with the right game plan, which I do think he does, I think he can win this fight. So give me Chris Duncan to win this fight. I'll take him to win this fight by a decision in this one. Oh boy. Ketlen Vieira going against Pannie Kianzad. We got Ketlen Vieira, 31 years old, 5'8", with a 68-inch reach, 13-3, and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Pannie Kianzad, 31 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach, 16-6, and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. We see that Vieira opened up, believe it or not, minus 325, currently minus 150. Pannie Kianzad opened up as a plus 275 dog, currently plus 130. Yeah, this card, in terms of like the predictions, like I think a lot of these fights can go either way. I think you can make a lot of cases for a lot of these underdogs, and quite frankly, like this is another underdog that I think is very live. Pannie Kianzad, I think she's a very solid striker. I love the volume that Pannie Kianzad brings to the table here. It's going to be Vieira that's going to, be landing the more eye-popping shots, the shots that have more impact. But, Pannie Kianzad can go out there and put up some serious volume, and I think she can go out there and put up a lot more volume than Ketlen Vieira in this matchup. We saw Kianzad go out there, put up 78 against Landsberg. We saw her put up 124 against Alexis Davis, 92 against Eubanks, 103 against Betch Correa, 98 against Jessica Rose Clark. Like, she can go out there, she can throw, and she can throw a lot and land a lot as well. So if she's able to keep this standing, like I said, it's going to be Vieira that's going to land the harder shots, but it's going to be Kianzad that's probably going to be landing more volume overall in terms of the numbers. So I guess it all comes down to me for, whether Ketlen Vieira is able to take this fight down to the mat. And I kind of feel like Pannie has the takedown defense to keep this standing. On paper, it is 80%. She did get taken down once by Raquel Pennington, once by Alexis Davis, twice by Eubanks. Betch Correa took her down as well. But, she is able to stuff a lot of these takedowns. And if she's able to stuff the takedown here against Ketlen Vieira, I think she can win a competitive fight on the feet. My concern, though, is if Ketlen Vieira does get this fight down to the mat, Ketlen Vieira is a very solid grappler. I feel like she can win minutes there, but I'm going to say that Pannie does keep it standing for these 15 minutes. But again, it's a fight that I could really, quite frankly, care less about, and it's a fight where it's just a dog or pat. It's a close fight for me. So give me Kianzad to win this fight. Give me to win it by decision, but I will not be putting $1 on this matchup. Moving on. All right, good fight here. We got Makhmud Muradov going against Bryan Barberena. We got Makhmud Muradov, 33 years old, 6'2", with a 75-inch reach, 25-8, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We have Bryan Barberena, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach, 18-10, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. So we'll take a look at the odds here. Muradov is the favorite. He opened up minus 350. He is currently minus 275. Bryan Barberena opened up plus 285. And he is currently plus 235. So, not really sure what's going on here with Barberena. So, Barberena is a guy that, for welterweight, he wasn't like a massive welterweight at like 170. And then he's coming up a weight class, which from welterweight to middleweight, like that's 15 pounds. I mean, it makes no sense. So not only was he kind of not big at all for welterweight, he's just going to be just massively undersized at middleweight and just massively undersized in this matchup. So I'm not really sure what's going on here with Barberena. Like, he's on a 2-fight skid. You would think that it'd be a good time to potentially, not go up to middleweight and fight Makhmud Muradov, but hey, he decided to do that, and this is probably going to be his 3rd loss in a row, to be honest, because it's a tough matchup for him. Makhmud Muradov is a very good striker. He's the better striker in this matchup. This is a guy that's going to be landing the much, much harder shots here. Bryan Barberena is a guy that he's only 34 years old, but I've seen some decline in his game the past couple years. He had that like really bad, I think it was a back injury a couple years ago. Apparently, like, the doctors told him that he probably won't ever fight again. And then apparently, like, he like ballooned up to like over 200 something pounds, right? So he came back after that major injury or whatever, and he just has not looked that great ever since. He fought Anthony Ivy, and Anthony Ivy had a lot of success in terms of taking him down. He fought Jason Witt, and Jason Witt dropped the guy. I mean, if you're getting dropped by Jason Witt, I don't know what to tell you. Darian Weeks had a very, very close fight against Barberena. You know, some people thought Weeks won that fight. Matt Brown had a very, very good fight against Barberena. A lot of people thought Matt Brown won the fight. And then even Robbie Lawler was having success against the guy. And then he gets subbed by Gunnar Nelson and RDA. So I just have not been impressed with Barberena. And quite frankly, a very long time here. Barberena, his path to victory in this matchup is going to be, I don't know. I mean, he's going to have to throw a lot of volume, but he's going to get hit in the process, and he's going to get hit hard by Makhmud Muradov here. I think Muradov probably knocks out Barberena. I think the durability of Barberena was once very, very good. I think the durability is starting to wane a little bit. We saw Lawler hurt him. We saw Jason Witt knock him down. I think Muradov probably knocks out Barberena here. This matchup makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to why Barberena is coming up a weight class at this point of his career. I kind of wonder like if something's wrong with Barberena, like if he's hurt or what's going on, but just a really interesting career move here for Bryan Barberena in a very tough matchup. I'm going to take Muradov to win this fight. I'll say he knocks out Barberena in the second round here. Weird fight, but it's a good fight for Muradov, I think. Moving on, we got Jamal Pogues going against Michael Parkin. Weird fight here. We got Pogues, 27 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach, 10-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Michael Parkin, 27 years old, 6'4" with a 79-inch reach, 6-0, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. We see that Pogues opened up as a plus 150 dog, and then he went to like a massive favorite, and now he's back down to minus 150. And then Parkin opened up minus 175. He went to a massive dog, and now he's back to plus 130 here. So this matchup, I mean, there's not much. I mean, I have no clue what to do. Like Michael Parkin, you go watch all of his fights, and he looks good. He looks pretty good, but he's fighting like the worst competition you'll ever see in your life. Even like on the Contender Series against that like Neves guy. I don't think that Neves guy was that great, and he was able to go out there and finish him, and that's good, but my goodness, I mean, he's just not fighting anybody. At least with Pogues, he is fighting like real people that actually, I don't know, he's fighting real guys that are decent, whereas Michael Parkin is fighting completely nobodies. So, but I've never been impressed with Jamal Pogues. Like, Pogues is a guy that's a light heavyweight that's fighting at heavyweight for some reason. I'm not sure why he is, but he is. And I remember, because I was breaking down Contender Series last year, and I remember taping Pogues versus this Renato Jr. guy, right? And I was taping Pogues, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's pretty good. And I'm like, oh, this fight's at heavyweight. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting, because this guy's fought like the majority of his career at light heavyweight. And then he shows up against this Renato Jr. guy on the Contender Series, his second Contender Series fight, and he looks awful. I mean, it looks like he didn't train. I think that, the picture you see right there on the left, I think that's how he looked, with that wild haircut. He looked out of shape. He looked like he didn't even train for the fight. And quite frankly, he barely won that fight. He gets outlanded, I think, in every round. He doesn't even choose to wrestle. And I'm like, what is going on? This is not the Jamal Pogues I watched on tape at all. So I would like to see him go back down to light heavyweight, because this guy actually has some decent skills. He's he can wrestle. He can wrestle across 15 minutes. He has good cardio. But, I saw none of that in his second Contender Series fight. In the first Contender Series fight, he went out there and got 7 takedowns, but just none in that second Contender Series fight. And then he goes out there and fights Josh Parisian and doesn't look great, but goes out there and beats Josh Parisian, which that just tells me nothing. The thing about this Parkin guy is I think this guy could potentially be really good, and I kind of have a feeling somebody knows something, because this line has, like I said, it opened with Parkin as a favorite. He went to a massive dog, and just the last couple days, money's just been pouring in on Parkin. I think somebody knows something about this guy, because I have no clue. I have no clue whether he's really good or really bad, but what I do know is he's training with some very, very high-level guys. Checked out his Instagram. He's training a lot with Tom Aspinall, who's on this card, main eventing it. He's obviously really good. And then I saw he's training with guys like Paul Craig as well. Apparently he's a BJJ, I think purple or brown belt at this point. So everything with Parkin, it looks good. It's just he's not tested at all. I think this guy could potentially be the real deal, or he could be a fraud. So it's kind of a tough matchup. Like, I don't know anything about Parkin. You can watch all the tape of one of them, and it tells you nothing, because beating these guys just means nothing to me. But he looks good doing it. He has great training partners. Looks to be a very skilled fighter. So kind of a shot in the dark pick here, but I will pick Parkin. And I think it's a lot more just due to the fact that I'm just not high on Pogues at all. I think at least with Parkin, there could potentially be some upside. But with Pogues, I don't know. I don't like this guy that much. So give me Parkin to win this fight. I'm going to say he finishes Pogues at some point, whether it's a knockout, whether it's a submission. Pogues has been finished in all 3 of his losses. So I'll say Parkin does get him out of there at some point in this matchup. I'll say by knockout. But just a weird, awkward fight here with this one. So give me Parkin for the upset, though. Picking a ton of dogs on this card. Joel Alvarez going against Marc Diakiese. Alvarez, 30 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach, 19-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Marc Diakiese, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach, 16-6 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Let's take a look at the odds here. Alvarez opened up -350. He is currently -190, and then Diakiese opened up +285. He's currently +165, and I used to be a pretty big Joel Alvarez hater. This is a guy in Alvarez who is an incredible grappler. He really is. This guy's super dangerous on the mat. The majority of his wins coming by submission. I want to take a look at it here. Yeah, 84% of his wins, 84% coming by submission, right? And then I remember hearing an interview with this guy, and he's talking about like how he is like primarily a striker, and I thought, oh, that's very interesting. And then I saw the Thiago Moises fight, and I'm like, oh yeah, he is a very good striker. My goodness, he went out there and starched Thiago Moises on the feet, and looked very good doing so. So yeah, I guess this guy's striking is pretty dang good, but his grappling is always what impressed me the most with this guy. He went out there, he submitted Yakovlev, he submitted Joe Duffy as a really big dog. He went out there and, like I said, starched Thiago Moises. This guy, Alvarez, is just super dangerous wherever the fight goes. He's one of those guys where he's a great grappler, but he won't shoot takedowns. I think he's attempted 0 takedowns, which is interesting. But he's one of those guys where he pressures you so much, he hits you so hard that he forces you to shoot in for a takedown. And once you do, I mean, the fight's over. So I feel like in this matchup, Alvarez is going to obviously be bigger. I think he's probably going to even miss weight. Like, I'm not sure how he makes lightweight, and I think he's missed it like twice at this point. So yeah, he probably misses weight. And then I just remember him missing weight against Thiago Moises, and then him showing up the next day, and he looked like a light heavyweight compared to Thiago Moises. It was wild. He was towering over Thiago Moises. So yeah, he's going to be much bigger in this matchup, probably misses weight, which is going to benefit him. Very, very dangerous on the feet. We've seen Diakiese get hurt. We saw him get hurt against Alves, and once he got hurt by Alves, Diakiese shot in for a takedown, got his neck snatched up, and I kind of feel like that's very much on the table here. I just think Alvarez, although he's not a minute winner at all, he's won 0 decisions. I still feel like he has a lot of avenues to win this fight. You know, I guess it all comes down to the game plan of Diakiese. Is Diakiese going to strike with Alvarez here? If so, you know, Diakiese is probably the better striker, but Alvarez is super dangerous and probably catches him. Or is Diakiese going to go out there and try to wrestle like he has been? If he does, I mean, he can, because Alvarez has a 0% takedown defense, but if he does that, he's probably getting submitted. So kind of a weird matchup here. I would not be laying -190 on a guy in Alvarez who like does not ever win minutes in terms of the offensive wrestling, the striking. But, I mean, the guy is so dangerous that I think he does win this fight more often than not. So give me Alvarez to win this fight. I'll say club and sub. Hurts Diakiese on the feet. Diakiese shoots in and gets his neck snatched up in the very first round. Alvarez, first round submission for me. Moving on, we have probably the lowest level fight on the card. It's Danny Roberts going against Jonny Parsons. We got Danny Roberts, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach, 18-7, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Jonny Parsons, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach, 8-3 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds, and we see that this fight, Roberts opened up -170, currently a pick'em -110. And then Parsons opened up +145, currently -110. And I think a pick'em is about right here. And that's because Danny Roberts, I think, is the much better fighter, and it's not even close. I mean, Danny Roberts is better than Johnny Parsons in every single area of MMA. He's fought the much better competition. He's more experienced by a mile. He's the much better striker. He's the much better grappler. He's better in every single aspect of MMA besides one thing, and that one thing is pretty important. And that one thing is durability. Danny Roberts is probably the least durable fighter in the welterweight division. He's like the welterweight Shannon Ross out here. I mean, this guy's durability is terrible. 7 losses, 6 losses coming inside the distance. In the one fight that did go to decision, Francisco Trinaldo could have finished him like 50 times. Like, he was wobbling around the cage on multiple occasions. I mean, Danny Roberts, his chin is just gone at this point. And although I think he's the much better fighter, if this fight were to go the 15 minutes, I think Roberts probably does win. It's just, one shot is all it takes. And I feel like Johnny Parsons is going to land that shot. Like, Johnny Parsons is a guy that, at the very least, he is going to come forward, he's going to throw, and he's going to throw hard. And throwing hard is probably enough to win this fight and knock out the very chinny Danny Roberts, who is now 36 years old and who's been finished a million times in his career. So give me Johnny Parsons to win this fight, but this fight is very sketchy. Johnny Parsons has not fought in a very long time. The last time we did see Johnny Parsons fight was back in, 2021, October, Solomon Renfro. And then after that, he was supposed to fight Michael Gilmore, and he had to pull out of that fight. And then I was listening to an interview. Apparently, Johnny Parsons has been, battling a ton of concussions, a ton of, serious injuries going on with Johnny Parsons. And you have to have a serious injury to pull out of a Michael Gilmore fight, you got to believe. So, and not sure what's going on with Johnny Parsons. Has not fought in a very long time. If he's coming here healthy, ready to go, I mean, yeah, he should knock out Danny Roberts in the very first round. So, again, maybe the very first punch, right? We saw Jesus Aguilar with a 62-inch reach have no knockouts in his career. Knock out Shannon Ross with the very first punch that landed. Maybe Parsons just lands one punch and that's it. So give me Johnny Parsons to land a one punch and Danny Roberts to go down. But yeah, give me Parsons first round knockout here. All right, next we have an absolute banger. Daniel Marcos going against Davey Grant. We got Daniel Marcos, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach, 14-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Davey Grant, 37 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach, 13-6, and he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Marcos opened up plus 125 dog, currently minus 140 favorite. Davey Grant opened up minus 145, currently a plus 120 underdog here. So Daniel Marcos, I remember this guy from the Contender Series, and it was weird with Marcos. I remember watching tape on Marcos, and this guy's been very inactive throughout the last 5 years. So he fought 5 years ago, and then he fought he took 8 months off after that, and then he took 6 months off after that, and then he takes 3 years off between the Contender Series fight and the last fight he had before the Contender Series fight. He takes 3 years off, and then he shows up on the Contender Series and just looks like a completely different fighter. He looks amazing in the Contender Series fight. This guy made a ton of improvements taking those 3 years off, and he looks awesome in the Contender Series fight. And then he makes his debut against Simon Oliveira and looks even better. I mean, this guy's striking is very, very good. Tons of tools on the feet, tons of volume as well, some solid power. He's starting to finally flash some power as well. He hurt Brandon Lewis on multiple occasions. He knocked out Simon Oliveira in the second round, landed a nice knee to the body. So, yeah, I mean, I think Daniel Marcos is a guy that has a lot of upside. He's 7 years younger in this matchup. The problem is he's taken on Davey Grant, who Davey Grant is a guy that has improved so much, late in his career. It's crazy to say, but Davey Grant now at 37 years old, this is the best version of Davey Grant we've ever seen. He's been going out there and just pulling off multiple upsets. I think against Martin Day, he was even a dog, knocked him out in the third round. He was definitely a dog against Jonathan Martinez, knocked him out in the second round, great win. Showed a lot of toughness against Marlon Vera, beating Vera in the first round, losing the second and third, but surviving, showing a ton of toughness there. And then he beats Adrian Yanez, or he loses to Adrian Yanez. I had a big bet on Yanez I thought Davey Grant won that fight, so I think he very well could have beat Yanez there. Then he beats Luis Smolka. Then he beats Rafael Assunção. Davey Grant has looked very, very good late in his career. His striking is looking better than ever. He is showing a ton of power. Davey Grant is super durable as well. This guy's never been knocked out. He has a chin on him. So yeah, I think it's a very good test for Daniel Marcos if he can get past Davey Grant, which is a very tough fight. I mean, I think Daniel Marcos could very well be the real deal. It's just he has to get past a very dangerous guy in Davey Grant. I will pick Daniel Marcos here. I think he will do the better work on the feet across 15 minutes, but Davey Grant has a ton of power, and I know for a fact that Davey Grant is next level tough, next level durable, whereas Daniel Marcos, I don't know at all. We have not seen Daniel Marcos tested really, especially his chin. I mean, Simon Oliveira, he's not testing your chin at all. He's a grappler. And then that Lewis guy in the Contender Series did not really test his chin. I mean, Davey Grant is going to test his chin, and if Davey Grant lands one of those bombs, like this guy puts a ton into all his shots, he could potentially knock out Marcos. So, but I think Marcos is solid. He's younger. This guy has a ton of upside in my opinion, but he's got to get past Davey Grant here. So give me Marcos to win this fight by decision. I think it is close. I think it is competitive, but I like his striking. I like his volume, and I think he should be the minute winner here when it comes to the striking. I don't think he finishes Davey Grant. Davey Grant is just next level tough, but I'll say Marcos gets it done and gets it done by decision. Moving on, we have, I believe this is the first fight on the main card. Yeah, it is. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight main card. This is the first fight on it. Very good fight here. Lerone Murphy going against Joshua Culibao. We got Lerone Murphy, 32 years old, 5'9", with a 73.5-inch reach, 12-0-1, and 4-0-1 in his last 5 fights. Joshua Culibao, 29 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach, 11-1-1, and 3-0-1 in his last 5 fights. So, we see the odds here. Murphy opened up minus 225. He is currently sitting at minus 130. And then Joshua Culibao opened up plus 190. And he is currently plus 110 here. I think people are very low on Lerone Murphy after his last loss that got called a win in his last fight against Gabriel Santos, in a fight where, yeah, I thought Santos won that fight. They gave it to Murphy, though, but I think people are really low on Murphy after that fight. The thing we have to talk about here, though, is this couldn't be any more of a different matchup than the Santos fight with Culibao here. Gabriel Santos is primarily a grappler. He can strike, but he's primarily a grappler, and he primarily grappled in that Murphy fight where he took down Murphy 5 times. He got some control time. He got some submission attempts in and all that. Whereas Joshua Culibao, this guy has completed 0 takedowns in the UFC, 0% takedown accuracy. He has attempted 4, but has not got any of them. So although Murphy did get taken down 5 times in that matchup and probably lost, I mean, this is a completely different fight. And what I noticed going through the record of Lerone Murphy, this is going to be, pretty much the first striker he's fought. He fought Gabriel Santos, who took him down 5 times. He fought Makhmud Americani, who took him down 5 times. He fought Zabura Tuhugov, who took him down 6 times. Ricardo Ramos, who's a BJJ black belt. Douglas Silva de Andrade, who took him down a couple times, BJJ black belt. This is going to be the first time where he gets another striker, and I think that's very important to mention. He's not going to have to worry about his trash takedown defense because it's terrible. It's 43%. He's not going to have to worry about anybody taking him down here. If anything, Murphy is probably going to be the one going for takedowns in this matchup. So I think Murphy's going to get the fight he wants. I think he's going to be able to dictate where this fight takes place. And on the feet, I like Murphy striking a lot. I think both guys have a lot of power. I think Murphy has a little bit more volume. And I like Murphy to win this fight by decision. And I like the fact that we are in London, and we are in the main card. So I think the fans, even if Murphy loses this fight, I think the fans will probably sway the judges. Everything that Murphy lands, you're going to get a reaction out of the crowd. Got hometown cooking going on as well. And then you got Culibao coming over from, I think, Australia. That's a long flight there. So I think there's a lot of things going for Murphy. Even if it's a close fight, potentially loses the fight, I think the judges probably still give it to him here. I mean, they're going to give it to the undefeated guy in London. You got to think. So, but I think he wins this fight. I think he has more ways to win. I would like to see him kind of flip the script and go for takedowns in his own right here. So give me Murphy. Give me Murphy by decision. Money coming in on Culibao. I think on paper, yeah, it could be a potential close fight, but I think it's a fight that Murphy gets done here. Give me Murphy by decision. All right, so moving on, we have probably my least favorite fight in the card, and it's on the main card. I was not a big fan of either of these guys. We got Faraz Ziam going against Jai Herbert. We got Ziam, 26 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach, 13-4 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Jai Herbert, 35 years old, 6'1", with a 77-inch reach, 12-4 and 1 and 2-2-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. We have Ziam, who opened up as a plus 135 dog. He is now the favorite, sitting at minus 155. And then Jai Herbert, opening up the minus 155 favorite, currently sitting as a plus 135 dog. So yeah, I couldn't be any lower on either of these guys. But at the very least, I mean, at least Faraz Ziam has shown some improvements. Like in his last fight against that Figlak guy, he showed that he looked a lot better. He even mixed in takedowns in his own right, and I think those takedowns could potentially come into play here. But I'm just not a big fan of Ziam. Like, I remember the Luigi Van Der Meene fight where it was a very, very close fight, you know, Ziam, Van Der Meene, and it was in the 3rd round, and this guy, Ziam, was just like running away from Luigi Van Der Meene. That's what he does. He does a lot of running away. He's very defensively sound, which is great. He's a point fighter, but he has no killer instinct. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he goes out there, tries to win minutes, which is fine. But at least with Jai Herbert is going to land with a lot more power. He is going to try to take off Ziam's head. But the thing with Jai Herbert is this guy used to be like a killer. Like, this guy used to have a ton of power, a ton of finishing ability. But I think the fact that this guy's been finished a lot, he's been, you know, called chinny and all that, I think he's really changed up his style. We saw a completely different version of Jai Herbert in his fight against Kyle Nelson, where it looked like Jai Herbert, quite frankly, just didn't want to be there. He didn't want to fight. Ultimately, he won the fight, but we just never saw that version of Jai Herbert. Just a very, I don't want to say scared, but like tentative Jai Herbert, which I guess for him it's smart because, you know, it wouldn't be smart to go out there and get hit in the face by, you know, Kyle Nelson, but just a very tentative Jai Herbert, which we just aren't used to seeing. And then kind of the same thing with Ludovic Klein, just very tentative, just not a ton going on. So I think the fact that this guy has been knocked out so many times, he's kind of changing up his style to be very tentative, just to not do a ton in there, which I guess is smart, but I miss the old exciting Jai Herbert, you know, the killer be killed Jai Herbert. I just don't think that version of Jai Herbert exists. So in this matchup, I'm going to take Ziam. He's 26 years old, 9 years younger. He has more improvement potential. He did improve in his last fight. We all saw it. He looked good. He mixed in takedowns. I feel like he can mix in takedowns here. But on the feet, it's going to be close. Like, Ziam, he doesn't have any power whatsoever, whereas Herbert, he actually does have power. But I see like on the feet, like this could just be like not a ton going on. Both guys looking at each other. I feel like this could be like the worst fight in the card, to be honest. And it's the fight I'm least looking forward to. So give me Ziam to win like a decision, but not a fight I'm really looking forward to. And it's on the main card. Moving on, we got Andre Muniz going against Paul Craig. We got Andre Muniz, 33 years old, 6'1", with a 78-inch reach, 23-5 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Paul Craig, he is 35 years old, 6'3", with a 76-inch reach, 16-6-1 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. Andre Muniz opened up minus 185, currently minus 230. Paul Craig opened up plus 165, currently plus 195. So Paul Craig is moving down to middleweight for, I believe, the first time in his career, at least the first time in the UFC, which is a pretty big weight cut. I mean, going from 205 to 185. So I'm curious to see what Craig does look like on the scales, because he is 6'3". So yeah, if he makes this cut, looks good doing it, it could be a benefit, you know, being the much bigger guy here in this matchup, or it could be like a detriment to his chin that is already pretty bad. So we'll see here. But Paul Craig, fan favorite. The guy's exciting, but the guy, for him to win this fight, like, it's probably going to be like, how does Paul Craig win all of his fights? And the answer to that is like a triangle on bottom. And the thing is, you know, that he's done that a lot, right? We saw him go out there and submit Jamal Hill, which was a phenomenal win for Paul Craig. We saw him go out there and submit Nikita Krylov. But, you know, Krylov's been submitted like 6 times. We saw him submit Antagulov. We saw him submit knockout Shogun. We saw him submit Vinicius Moreira. We saw him submit Kennedy Nzechukwu, Magomed Ankalaev. If he goes out there and submits a third-degree black belt in BJJ and Muniz, I would be very, very surprised. I think Paul Craig is a very good grappler, one of the best grapplers in the light heavyweight division. But when we're talking grappling, there's levels to it, and Muniz is the much, much better grappler. So I feel like Muniz can attack this fight in a multitude of ways. But I feel like what I would like to see Muniz do is take this guy down, take down Paul Craig, because first of all, there will be no resistance, and second of all, I think Muniz is the better grappler. Is it dangerous going into the guard of Paul Craig? Yes. But I feel like Muniz can take this guy's back and choke him out. Like, on the feet, I don't think Muniz is the best striker. Like, if this fight takes place on the feet for 15 minutes, it's probably going to be the worst-looking fight on the card. But then again, I could potentially see Muniz knocking out Paul Craig. So I just feel like Muniz has a lot of paths to victory, whereas Paul Craig's path to victory is going to be submitting a third-degree black belt off of his back, and I just think that's going to be easier said than done, especially early. I know Brendan Allen submitted Muniz in the third round, and maybe people are looking at that, but Muniz was just completely gassed out and done. So I like Muniz here. I like Muniz to win this fight really however he wants. If he wants to take down Craig and sub him, I think he can. And then if he wants to knock out Craig, I think he probably can. But I would prefer him to actually take down Paul Craig, as crazy as that sounds. Muniz submitted Jacare Souza, right? That's very, very impressive to me. And I think he can absolutely submit Paul Craig, who has been submitted before by Jimmy Cruz. So give me Muniz to win this fight. I'll say he takes down Paul Craig. Kind of runs right through him here. First round sub for Andre Muniz in this one. Next we have Nathaniel Wood going against Andre Fili. We got Nathaniel Wood, 29 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach, 19-5, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Andre Fili, 33 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach, 22-9 and 2-2 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Nathaniel Wood opened up as a -325 favorite, currently -190. Andre Fili opened up as a +275 dog, currently +165. Lots of line movement on this card. This is another one that did move quite a bit. So Nathaniel Wood's a guy that has fought primarily at bantamweight the entire career. He did move up to featherweight. I believe in his last 2 fights, they have been at featherweight, and he's looked pretty dang good, to be honest. Like, he went out there and beat Charles Rosa by decision. He went out there and beat Charles Jourdain by decision. So this is going to be probably the toughest test of his featherweight career thus far against Andre Fili. And yeah, I feel like this fight's going to play out very closely. The line doesn't really indicate that, though. But I do like Wood here, and here's why. So we are in London, hometown advantage. If it's a close decision, it's going his way. The crowd's going to be on his side. I love the volume of Wood. This guy throws a ton of volume, landing 6.34 significant strikes per minute. I think Wood can go out there and potentially wrestle Fili as well. We saw Wood go out there and take down Jourdain 5 times, take down Rosa a couple times. Although Fili is better than Jourdain and Rosa in terms of the takedown defense, I still think that Wood can mix in some takedowns here. But I think on the feet, it will be close competitive, but I think that Wood will be landing more volume across 15 minutes here. The thing I don't like about Wood in this matchup is he's going to be super undersized. Super undersized. Wood is going to be at a 5-inch height disadvantage and then a 6-inch reach disadvantage. I don't like that. So this line really doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I think it should be lined a lot closer, but ultimately in terms of picking a winner who I think is going to get his hand raised, despite the line, I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood here. Maybe some hometown cooking involved, maybe some bad judging involved, which is expected, as always, terrible judging. But like I said, I think if this is close or even if Fili slightly wins, we all know who the decision is going to, and I think that matters. It seriously matters to me. So give me Wood to win this fight. I think it's going to be close, potentially even a split decision in this one, but I think Wood wins it by decision. Moving on to the co-main event. Yes, you heard that right. Molly McCann is in a co-main event, and she's taking on Julia Stoliarenko. We got Molly McCann, 33 years old, 5'4", with a 62-inch reach, 13-5, and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Julia Stoliarenko, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach, 10-7, and 1-4 in her last 5 fights. Let's take a look at the odds here. Molly McCann opened up a massive favorite, -400, currently -190. And then Julia Stoliarenko opened up +300, currently +165. Julia Stoliarenko getting a lot of love this week. She's so bad. But hey, she could potentially win this fight. But yeah, Julio Stoliarenko, I don't know how to really describe her. I mean, she's something you never really see, especially at flyweight, female fighter. She's a finisher, and that's about it. She's a armbar from guard specialist. She has 10 wins, 9 of which coming by submission. I think like just about all those coming by armbar. So yeah, she's super dangerous when the fight hits the mat. So yeah, her submission game's great, but everything else is just not good at all. Her wrestling is non-existent. Her striking is non-existent. Her striking defense is non-existent. A lot of things that are non-existent in the game of Stoliarenko, but she does have that one thing that she's really good at, and that one thing that she's really good at has allowed her to get 10 wins, but she also has 7 losses. I think we all know what the UFC is doing here, and it's pretty clear to me, and what they're doing is they're setting up Molly McCann with the easiest possible matchup in the UFC, which is Julio Stoliarenko, and she could mess this up, but I mean, come on. Molly McCann, all she has to do is just not go to the ground. And, Julio Stoliarenko's not taking down Molly McCann. Molly McCann, she can take down Stoliarenko if she wants to, but why would you? Like, Molly McCann's going to have a significant advantage on the feet. Like, it's not going to be close. I think Molly's really going to hurt Stoliarenko here. We are in London. She has a co-main event slot. She's been like fired up in London the past 2 times. I think, there's that Blanchfield fight, which it is what it is, but she went out there. She knocked out Hannah Goldie. She knocked out Luana Carolina, and I think the UFC's trying to get her another knockout win here, and I think it comes. I think she's going to go after Julio Stoliarenko early, and what I like about Stoliarenko is she's going to get after it early as well. These fighters are going to probably stand and bang, and Molly McCann's probably going to knock her out. So I like Molly McCann. Actually, first round knockout, as crazy as that sounds, I think Molly McCann makes quick work here. But if this fight goes to the mat and you're laying minus 190 on Molly McCann, you're going to feel very, very uncomfortable. Because if this fight does hit the mat, Stoliarenko probably does submit Molly McCann. No matter how bad I think Stoliarenko is, she's really good once this fight hits the ground, whether on top or on bottom. So that's terrifying. Oh, another thing is this fight is at flyweight, which is interesting because Stoliarenko, remember the one fight, I forget who it was against, but she missed, either she missed weight or she barely made weight, but she passed out on the scale. Like, it was terrible. And then she's been fighting at Bannon weight as of late, even missing weight. Let me see. So her last fight was against Chelsea Chandler, and it was a catch weight of 140. She weighed in 139.5. Why is Stoliarenko cutting down to 125? Against Jessica Rose Clark, it was at bantamweight, weighed in at 136. Against Alexis Davis, bantamweight. Julia Vila, bantamweight. Yana Santos, bantamweight. What is going on here? And then what was the fight? Yeah, it was the Avila fight where Stoliarenko almost died on the scales. So, yikes. I mean, what? Why is this fight at flyweight? So this fight probably doesn't even happen. So I wasted everybody's time breaking down that fight because this fight probably doesn't happen, or Stoliarenko misses weight. Because I'm looking through her career, she has a lot of weight misses at bantamweight. She has a featherweight fight back against Leah Letson on the Ultimate Fighter finale. Featherweight fight against Pannie Kianzad there in the Ultimate Fighter. Yikes. I mean, has she ever fought at flyweight before? And it doesn't look like she's ever fought at flyweight. So, yeah, Molly McCann by starching if this fight happens. Yeah, I just went through her entire record, and unless I missed it, I didn't see one flyweight fight. So my prediction is Julio Stoliarenko misses weight. I mean, I think that's a given. I'm going to say weighs in at about 127.5, 128, and then she gets starched in the first round. So weird that this fight is at flyweight, but it is, and I think it's a clear setup fight for Molly McCann. Molly McCann, first round knockout. My goodness. Moving on to the main event, we got Tom Aspinall, Tybura. Smash that like button if you have not done already. We got Tom Aspinall, 30 years old, 6'5", with a 78-inch reach, 12-3, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Marcin Tybura, 37 years old, 6'3", with a 78-inch reach, 24-7, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. We see that Tom Aspinall, biggest favorite on the card, opened at minus 440, currently minus 400. Tybura opened up plus 340, currently plus 300. So Tom Aspinall, when I did my main event prediction, was minus 550 last night, and Tybura was plus 400. So it looks like some money has came in on Tybura here. Yeah, Tom Aspinall, we talked about setup fights in the last fight with Molly McCann. This couldn't be any more of a setup fight. I mean, Tom Aspinall, he had that injury that he sustained in the Curtis Blades fight. He took some time off. He's coming back about a year later, and instead of the UFC giving him someone like, Curtis Blades, someone like even Tai Tuivasa, someone like Sergey Pavlovich, someone like Sergey Spivak, someone like a Stipe, like a Jones. Instead of giving Aspinall someone like that, they give him one of the easiest matchups up in that top 10, right? And that's Marcin Tybura. Marcin Tybura, though, has been on a run. He's been looking really good. But, I mean, look at who Marcin Tybura's kind of been beating. Like, in his very last fight, he went out there and beat Blagoy Ivanov in a fight that was disturbingly closer than it probably should have been. And then he went out there and beat Romanov in a fight that probably should have been a draw. He lost to Volkov. He went out there and beat Walt Harris in a fight where he got hurt on multiple occasions early on. Luckily for him, Walt Harris gassed out. Tybura got on top and finished the fight. Same thing about with Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy was piecing up Tybura in the first round. Hardy gassed out, got taken down, and then Tybura finished him. Prior to that, he beat Ben Rothwell, Maxime Grishin, who's a 205er. The Sergey Spivak was a very good win, especially aging well now. But I don't know. I mean, this is going to be the hardest hitter Tybura's fought since Derek Lewis back in 2018, where Derek Lewis did knock him out, and then he got knocked out by Shamil back in 2019. Shamil Abdurakhimov, who's not knocking out anybody, got knocked out in 60 seconds by Augustus Sakai. And then, like I said, Walt Harris almost knocked him out. Greg Hardy almost knocked him out. So I still have questions about the chin of Tybura. I just think in the past couple fights, he hasn't had to worry about that chin. I mean, Blagoy Ivanov's not knocking out anybody. Alexander Romanov is not knocking out anybody. And then, like I said, Ben Rothwell, he's not knocking out anybody. Grishin is not. So I think this is a very, very tough matchup for one Marcin Tybura. I think he's a big dog for a reason. I think for Tybura to win this fight, he's going to have to do one of two things. He's going to have to either A, take down Aspinall at will early and often, not strike with him at all, and I just don't think that happens. I think Aspinall does have good takedown defense. He is a BJJ black belt for what it's worth. And oh, by the way, I saw Tybura and Aspinall face off. They did like a face off today outside of the arena, and Tybura looked like a completely different fighter. Tybura showed up, and he weighed in 253 in his last fight. I'm curious to see what Tybura weighs this time around, because he looked like he lost a good amount of weight. He looked very skinny, which for this matchup, I don't like that for him. But I want to kind of see what Tybura weighs in at. So, but yeah, I think it's Tom Aspinall here all day. I think for Tybura to win this fight, he's going to have to either A, consistently take down Tom Aspinall, or B, just outlast Tom Aspinall, get this fight to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, where we have never seen Tom. Tom has never been to the 3rd round, and I'm curious to see how he looks if he gets to the 3rd round. But I don't think we get to the 3rd round here in this matchup. I think we get to the 1st round, and in the 1st round only, I think Tom Aspinall makes pretty quick work here of Marcin Tybura. So give me Tom Aspinall to win this fight by 1st round knockout. There you have it. Broke down all 15 fights. Challenging card, I'd say, from a pick perspective. A lot of fights that can go either way. But from a betting perspective, there's a lot of props sticking out. I do have some totals. I have a couple parlays. And I'm going to be looking at adding maybe 1 or 2 money line bets as well. So I'm going to be pretty heavily exposed to this card. And then next week's card as well, 291. I think there's going to be a bunch of betting opportunities for that card as well. So going to end July with a bang. Hopefully end July with a winning month overall. And so far, we are on our way to doing so. So before we head out, if you guys can please leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I do appreciate that a ton. Check out Prize Picks. Use that promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Check out the Prize Picks video dropping Thursday. Got the DraftKings video dropping Wednesday. Check out DFSbythenumbers.com. Going to be dropping some content this week early because I'm pretty ahead this week. I'm about done with my big article that takes forever to do. So that should be out sometime tonight, hopefully. So best of luck for UFC London. Let's make some money. Enjoy the fight. Should be a fun card. And we'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.